Suzuki Roshi once said, the best way is just to practice without saying anything. So for a moment, I'm keeping you on gallery view, just to take you in and not say anything until I start saying something. We listened to a talk last week at Nothing Missing by Kogan Kim Hart of the San Francisco Zen Center, entitled About Time. And the story that stays with me from her beautiful talk was when she was the Jisha, assistant teacher, Rushin Paul Haller, and they were walking towards the Buddha hall to open the zendo and light incense. And Paul Haller paused when a little girl started to talk with him. And this really touched Kim Hart, and something opened to her about the nature of time and about the nature of intimacy in any moment. And as I think about it, I can place myself there behind the two of them. I can hear the little girl talking, and I can hear Rushin Paul Haller responding, and I can feel a kind of deep time moment of intimacy in the middle of all the busyness of life. And I find myself a little bit enchanted by it. And I could also make it into something I want for myself, always. I want moments like that. This is how I want to live my life. Even if I'm going to an appointment, I want to make this important. And I realize I'm starting to get caught in the self-centered dream at that point. I'm making this teaching, this moment, into something of utility, perhaps something quite useful and comforting in my busy life. Conversely, I could say, well, my life is so busy. This teaching really frustrates me because I couldn't possibly aspire to some of the things that Kim Hart talks about in that talk. And again, I'm caught in the self-centered dream in relation to a talk. I'd like to pair that experience with what I think Suzuki Roshi once said about Zen. And he said, Zen is being on time. And in relation to a retreat, Flint says, be in your seat at least 5 minutes before the start of sitting. So there's a balance between those two teachings for me. Suzuki Roshi says, the true way always has at least two sides, the negative and the positive. When we talk about the negative side, the positive side is missing. And when we talk about the positive side, the negative side is missing. So we do not know what to say. It is almost impossible to talk about Buddhism. And then later on he says, if we understand this point, we will understand how to talk about Buddhism, and we will have perfect communication. To talk about something will be one of our practices, and to listen to the talk will also be a practice. I'm becoming increasingly curious about my process in preparing talks. What happens to me? What am I thinking about it? What are my concerns? What are my hopes? What am I trying to convey? And I try to keep those questions in my mind as I'm preparing. And as I'm actually offering a talk, I wonder what's actually happening to me at this moment as I share this with you. So to talk about something will be one of our practices, and to listen to the talk will also be a practice. And I'm wondering what your practice is as you listen to a talk. Just pause for a moment and turn to yourself and ask the question, what do I do? What is your habit of attention as you engage with me this morning? To what extent are you listening to your talk at the same time as mine? To what extent do you take something from the talk, perhaps one, maybe two things, and then experience them afterwards in some way? In what way is it helpful? In what way is it challenging? To what extent does it become a project that ultimately we fail at? Nothing Missing, many years ago, we read out some statements by a teacher, and one of the statements was, "There is no state to be attained other than the practice of letting go. There is no state to be attained other than the practice of letting go." That's a powerful statement. And in the small group I was in afterwards, one of those people said, "I just can't let go of things. It's impossible. It's something I can't do." So, the talk or the statement is just too challenging. I wonder if when we listen to a talk or listen to a statement, the question could be more, what does it open for you? Rather than the actual statement itself. What does it open for you? And I was curious about this practice of letting go. And then I read that Katagiri Roshi had been speaking to somebody, listening to somebody who had talked about a real issue of something that she wanted to let go. I can't let go. I can't let this go. And he said, then let it in. And something shifted. So he turned the statement round towards freedom by actually thinking, what does this open for you? What are the possibilities for this talk? Many of you will be familiar with the Norman Fisher book, Zen Practices on the Practice of Lojong. And the second slogan, there are slogans, is see everything as a dream. Slogan 3 is examine the nature of awareness. And in preparation for this talk, I read those two practices, and wow, I really felt comforted and inspired and some freedom in those two. Norman Fisher says, when you practice see everything as a dream and examine the nature of awareness, you may be thinking, this is great. Everything is empty. Everything is a dream, just like the slogan says. There isn't any person in there really. There is just awareness itself. So I'm free of all my self-worries and I can enjoy life a lot more. And I feel great when I hear that and when I read those slogans. And I don't really want to move on to slogan 4 which is don't get stuck on peace. And he says what don't get stuck on peace means is more or less forget the last two slogans. He says, what the slogan don't get stuck on peace is saying that when you start thinking like that, you are caught all over again. You are mistaken. You have merely exchanged one set of confused concepts for another. This train of thought will not be sustainable. It will cause you trouble. The point of don't get stuck on peace is don't get excited about the empty, dreamlike nature of everything, because now you've conceptualized it and made it into something, an idea, and soon that idea is going to trip you up. And forget about how great it is to be nobody, because that's just another excuse. It's too easy to make these slogans into belief systems. The important thing is to hold them lightly and don't think you have understood them. They're just devices. Take them with a grain of salt. They may not be really true at all. This can be applied to um, activity. A few months ago, I included in my talk how beautiful it is to see the food arriving at Sheldon, and how great it is to feel the abundance of the world and to put it all away and to see it transform and to enjoy the kind of soft dreamlike activity sometimes of that particular practice. And someone came to meet me in inquiry, and she said, I would struggle to attain your reverence for food. And I said, well, that reverence for food takes place at that moment on a Saturday morning and a Monday morning and a Wednesday morning at Sheldon. It's not like that all the time. And I think sometimes people have ideas about what it's like to be in the Zen kitchen, and they bring that idea to the kitchen. It's never quite like that. It's never one thing. Sometimes it's really spacious and the mood is quite quiet and focused. And other times it can be quite busy and frantic. There is a house style in my kitchen, but it contains many different aspects depending on the particular task and time constraints at the time. Suzuki Roshi also speaks to this point when he says, when I was at Aheji assisting my teacher, he did not tell us anything. He did not tell us anything, but whenever we made a mistake, he scolded us. The usual way to open sliding doors is to open the one on the right. But when I opened it that way, I was scolded. Don't open it like that, not that side. So he thought, I've got this. So the next morning, I opened the other side and got scolded again. I didn't know what to do. Later, I found out that the day I opened the right side, his guest was on the right side. So I should have opened the other side before opening the door. I should have been careful to find out which side his guest was on. So Suzuki Roshi says, as I said at the beginning of the talk, the true way always has at least two sides, the negative and the positive. He also says, not always so. This is the secret of the teaching. It may be so, but it is not always so. So perhaps the true way doesn't always have at least two sides, the negative and the positive. Dogen was once asked, "What is the mind of enlightenment?" And he said, "It's this soft, flexible mind. This soft, flexible mind." So I'd like to offer that as a possibility to us today, that we might enjoy our soft, flexible minds. Thank you very much.